Wonderful. I'd like to call to order the September Ramsey-Washington Metro Watershed District Board meeting. First order of business is the approval of the agenda. This is the time point where if you want something changed in the agenda, we should agree on that now, and then we can move forward.
So I'd like to propose moving 2443 to permit program application.
Wonderful. From the consent agenda, pulling 2443 and making it 5A3 in the permit program.
I'd like to propose moving 2445 off of the consent agenda as well.
Okay. 2445, and that will be 5A4. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda with the moves of 2443 and 2445 to the permit program? So moved.
Second.
Wonderful. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Moving forward to the consent agenda, we're going to approve all of these in a single motion. There is time for discussion at the end. So do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So motion.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Further discussion?
One small change in the minutes from last month. The permit 3439, 2439 Excel, the service center. When we do our voice votes, it's not obvious. I didn't voice, so I abstained.
Okay,
But
I
it would
think
carry.
yeah, I'm not sure. I think we would have had to designate that
Before we approved it.
at the time of the meeting. Lauren's shaking her head yes.
Okay.
Usually, yeah, if someone's abstaining, it might be good to note that, because otherwise, if we're not doing a roll call, then I don't know how else we know that someone is abstaining.
So it's best to verbally state.
Yeah, in that particular regard, that time point, you should said, well, do you mind doing a roll call approval?
Sure.
Okay. So we're trying to be efficient with time, but and all in favor say aye. I think there's two ways to do it. I think proactively saying, hey, let's do a roll call is perfectly fine.
Sure. Okay.
I think that's a good solution.
Yeah, and so then we can get the benefit if we're all on the same page, we say aye. I mean, if you do want to voice something different or abstain, we can go through that motion. I think that would be a great solution.
Okay. Good lesson. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any further discussion? Let's go ahead and move.
Oh, I'm sorry, but are you asking then for the meeting minutes to be amended to reflect that?
Well, that was my intent, but if
Yeah.
to do that, I'm okay with leaving as is.
I don't know the procedure here, Lauren. Do you have advice?
Yeah, because we just passed them, right?
Correct.
The consent calendar's been approved.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's have you vote again on just the meeting minutes. So someone make a motion to approve the meeting minutes with the revision requested. And that should supersede the previous motion on the minutes.
So can we, if he didn't technically abstain though, there wasn't a,
I just didn't voice it.
yeah, just didn't voice. Is that, we can make that change in the minutes?
Yes, if he didn't say aye, then he wasn't in favor.
Okay.
He didn't say aye, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Just one other clarification. I noticed that you moved the motion. Is that okay that he moved the motion to approve, but then
Yeah,
abstained?
it's a little strange,
Yeah,
right?
but it's okay.
But
Yeah, okay.
that is fine. I think going forward, if you are gonna abstain or somehow want your vote differentiated, to just say, please do a roll call on this one.
Okay, sounds good. but now we can re-vote on just the minutes.
Yes, let's
Make
just
that
do that and
change.
let's just rescind the previous passage of the minutes. It's not the cleanest, but that way the minutes will reflect what happened in the meeting.
So
Okay.
then, can I have a motion to, oh man, to approve the meeting minutes from August with the proposed revision to 2439 by Mark abstaining to vote?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So, yes, let's make sure next time, definitely do the roll call.
And Lauren, so for this month's minutes, I might just touch base with you on how to
Yeah,
make sure.
that's fine.
Yes. please.
Another thing, Val, if you wanted, is to say, all in favor, say aye. Any opposed, any
I
abstaining.
could do that. That's a good call.
And
I'll
that
start-
way we'll just, that should save the time, but also you can request a roll call if you'd like, but that way it's just kind of standard.
Let me put that into practice as we go and see how that flows.
Sure. Yep.
That works great. Section 4, visitor comments. There are no visitors. We have a public hearing later. So let's go ahead and jump to permit programs. I think I passed that to you, Nicole.
So the first permit on the revised agenda is still the 24-41 Woodbury Water Treatment Plant, the Woodlane Hargis Parkway project. This includes a variance request for Rule C, stormwater management, to exclude some of the reconstructed impervious area from their treatment requirements. So they submitted a variance request, but the long story short is, so the origination of this project is PFAS related. The city of Woodbury is constructing a new water treatment plant, and they need new water infrastructure. And it happens to be that this section of roadway adjacent to Gordon Bailey Elementary School was recently reconstructed in the last 5 years. It's kind of it's the southernmost single parcel in our watershed district. It's kind of an interesting little notch in our jurisdictional and hydrologic boundary. The reconstructed impervious area, the vast majority for this project is actually outside of the hydrologic boundary of our watershed, meaning that it actually does flow to predominantly Law Lake, which is in South Washington. So the applicant has submitted modeling and some figures to kind of show what our current jurisdictional versus hydrologic boundary is, and to explain that there's already sufficient treatment to today's standards for that impervious area. So if there's any questions.
I'll open it up to questions. I have a question if nobody else does initially. Just so I guess I don't really understand the ruling very well. So they demonstrated that the first 1.1 inches go to SWWD, right, in your report. But it feels like there is a substantial amount of flow coming to Carver Lake in a 100-year flood event. Can you help me understand which one's more important in those cases? Like, I just guess I don't know how to think about it.
Yeah, so my understanding is that during higher flow events, there's like a flow split.
Yeah.
And some of it goes to that pond at Gordon Bailey, which then goes to Carver. But the project in and of itself is not changing any conditions. It's simply a reconstruction of, a water main. So it's not increasing impervious or increasing runoff to Carver as a result of this project.
Okay, so these numbers, there's some assumption that, or what I internalized was that these numbers aren't different in the presence or
Right.
absence of this project.
Yes.
Okay, that didn't come across. across really clear.
Yeah, and then from a water quality perspective, it's been treated already.
Yeah, that part I got. That part, it feels like
Yeah.
it's covered. I was just kind of curious about the CFS flow into it, and I didn't realize that it wasn't different.
Yeah, they're actually not redoing storm infrastructure and they're not increasing impervious area, so there should be, zero impacts from the flood perspective as a result of the project.
I appreciate that. The report didn't screen that out
Yeah,
very clearly.
yeah,
So it looked like new discharge is how I read it.
Right.
yes, I can see where that came across.
Any other questions on this permits? Open up for more discussion on it. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve permit application 2441?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Moving to 2444.
Bill, did you want to do opposed and abstain just as a matter of
Thank
practice?
you. Yeah, see, it's just not part of my working model. Thank you. Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion passed.
Permit 24-44 is a MnDOT reconstruction, or partial reconstruction, partial resurfacing of parts of 7th Street East, which is in Capital Region Watershed District, and Highway 61 or Arcade. Capital Region is regulating areas in their jurisdiction separately. So this is just for what's located in Ramsey-Washington's jurisdictional boundary. They are proposing underground treatment. They are proposing to actually decrease impervious area in our watershed by close to 1/2 acre. So that's exciting to see. And the wetland, the variance request is for temporary disturbance to the wetland fringe in Round Lake. They are doing that in order to replace some stormwater cleared end sections that are existing but require replacement. So that's the variance for this project.
Just to summarize from my understanding, so they're decreasing impervious area and it's only a temporary disturbance to buffer. Do I have a motion to approve 2444?
I will move that we approve 2444.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? Motion passes. Jumping to 2443, permit program 2443, the Top Golf in Woodbury on page 42 above.
Yeah, you might have noticed it's located directly adjacent to another permit on the agenda this evening, 24-40. So there's 2 separate parcels within this greater redevelopment, which also has another permit issued last year, or excuse me, approved last year. So the reason that these permits were applied for was that the mass developer who's doing all the grading, the storm infrastructure, the utilities, he doesn't want responsibility for erosion control within these separate parcels because there's just going to be different contractors for these different, for both for Topgolf and Main Event. They're each their own, going to be their own landowners with their own contractors. So the mass developer requested that they submit separate erosion control permits so that for inspection purposes and enforcement, we can direct that to the right people.
My interest in this parcel is, it's largely undeveloped at this point in time, and it's going to be an increase in impervious surface with a runoff going largely across the freeway into a higher quality wetland. I mean, I guess it's pretty close to the wetland that I like. I mean, it originally was part of the same. So my question is, perhaps going back to the previous permit, but just even in the erosion and sediment, has that all been taken into consideration that we're going to have additional runoff? And if I remember correctly, the watershed district already put in a project some time ago for the manufacturing site down there. Vogel, yeah. So just wondering, I mean, they had flooding problems in the past. We've done a project and now we're, I mean, this project is to add in a lot of impervious surface.
Yeah, so this permit request this evening is, for erosion and sediment control.
I understand.
For the actual construction of the building, but yeah, that, all of our stormwater, review that we normally do for permits took place for that 2023 permit. So they were meeting our stormwater requirements. And that main developer is actually installing those facilities
And
to treat impervious from Topgolf.
And then following up on later on, I did see, I mean, there's always a possibility that sediment comes through. And then it's going to go directly into this higher quality wetland. Just a concern that now they're separate. You know, the contractor isn't taking responsibility for it, but the individual companies are.
Yeah. So in the city of Woodbury, we have an agreement with the city that Washington Conservation District staff do the routine inspection for sites located within Woodbury. However, if we do get those inspection reports, so if there's an issue noted where there's offsite impacts or a chance of offsite impacts, we can step in and do our own inspection at any point. We'll still do that initial erosion control walkthrough with the Topgolf contractor. We don't know who that's gonna be yet, to communicate what our requirements and our expectations are. But yeah, we expect to be kept in the loop by Woodbury's inspection staff. And if not, we can step in as we would any other project, because we, you know, also don't want to see any downstream impacts, as a result of this work, so. And we'll be in the area because we full line, so we're still doing inspection.
Maybe for the benefit of all of us, could you just re-educate us on these multifaceted programs with multiple lots? What triggers a reevaluation of the assumptions made during the first permit?
Yeah, so they had to, when they submitted their plans, we compared those to the 2023 permit. Luckily, that was only last year and our rules haven't changed. It gets dicey and more complex when we have developments that stretch on for 10, 15 years, and we have to go back to previous requirements and compare it and reconcile, you know, what our new requirements are. So yeah, but we look at those old permit files, those old stormwater reports, and then we ask their engineers to, you know, develop their own to say, like, this is what our assumptions are, and we check that against what we previously approved. Luckily, like I said, for this one, it was a much simpler process because the plans are the same and it's only from. So.
It's always a good question to ask. That's why I was like, I know that they check some of the process back to some of the assumptions. And then
What
if,
triggered like additional review is if they came back with plans for Topgolf that all of a sudden said, we have half an acre more of impervious than we had assumed back in 2023. So that would trigger a more involved review to make sure that our rules are still being met. But provided they can demonstrate it's the same or less than what was assumed in 2023, we're okay there.
Thank you.
that's a good question. Any other questions on 2443? Okay, do I have a motion to approve permit 2443?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say aye. All abstaining, say aye.
Aye.
Any further discussion? Okay. So let's move forward to 2445, permit 2445 on page 46 of the packet.
Were you abstaining or is that why you? wanted
Yeah,
to
yeah,
pull it?
my intent on this is to abstain. I provided Dunnick Construction with the construction bid documents for the cart path demolition and replacement, so.
Okay.
Conflict of interest there.
Thank you for calling it out of the consent agenda. Any further discussions or questions on project number 24, permit 2445? Do I have a motion to approve 2445.
I will motion approval of 2445.
All right, a second.
Second.
Perfect. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say aye or nay. All abstaining, say abstain.
Abstained.
I will work this out. Okay. Let's move forward to the enforcement action report. Page 70.
So we had some substantial rain events this month, which saw an increase in violations. And I did speak with Mary a little bit prior to this meeting. You know, her and Kendra are really trying to hold contractors' feet to the fire. You know, giving them warnings, and then when we get these large rain events and seeing discharge of sediment, it's, you know, frustrating for our inspection staff, so it is gonna result in violations and reductions from their escrow. So we did see that this month, on a few sites. But if you have any specific questions.
Looking for the number here, but the deluxe site in Sharpview, I believe, seems like there were some problems out there. And I guess it sounds like staff did a good job of following up. Sounds like there was some change in their activities.
Yeah.
Maybe not as much as ideal, at least initially. I guess my question is, are they currently meeting all expectations?
What did the inspection on the 26th show?
Well, actually, Mary, I think she did an inspection that week too, but then I think she said she was there today, and there's just one item still needed to get in compliance, but they've responded to all the other things, so she talked to them on the phone today.
And it's that item identified before.
Yes, yeah.
All right, thank you.
So she gave another violation, no, we're fixing it right now. She's like, well, it's still gonna be a violation because it was here when I got here, and it was here last time I was here and the time before, so. But yeah, we expect for now that it's in compliance, and we'll keep on them. We've also had good cooperation with City of Shoreview, which has been nice to have them provide some enforcement as well. They typically have Ramsey County do inspections on their behalf. But we've also had involvement from actual City of Shoreview staff on this one too, so that's seemed to make a difference as well.
Thank you.
We haven't have we worked with this contractor prior?
Yes, yeah, we've worked with the general contractor, many times, and then they are utilizing a subcontractor, which is, you know, the person who's responsible for a lot of these, action items. And I'm blanking on who they are right now.
That's
but
good. I was just,
Yeah,
you know, as we go back and revisit when contractors come into the bid, it's just a nice note to see people who are responsive versus some of those who need extra encouragement.
yeah. And I mean, it has taken more staff time and resources on this site, certainly, so we are.
Seems like a very large
hoping-
site.
Yeah, that's true too. But yeah, definitely hoping for less hand holding moving forward.
Thank you, Tina. Any further questions for Tina?
Either of us.
Just Tina. Sorry. Sorry, Nicole. Thank you. All right, let's transition to stewardship grant program. Oh, after you, Paige,
Or Ashley.
or Ashley, whoever is going to speak to it.
Yeah, good evening. Not too much to highlight. We had a single application approved by staff from last month, which was a water steward. Otherwise, there was the couple on the consent agenda, and then we have a few more looking into the future. That'll be on the next meeting. Funds wise, still looking good, a little bit, slowed down a little bit, I would say, from earlier this year, but otherwise I'll take any questions.
I do have one question, and maybe you can just help me understand if it's a typo or just in the priority area projects, there was $100K increase between funds allocated last month versus this month. It looks like it's $100K exactly.
I
So,
believe that's the Woodland Hills adjustment. That's a hard word for me tonight. That's the adjusted funds for Woodland Hills.
oh,
Yeah, I think we left it off last month.
Yeah.
For whatever
Okay.
reason, till it was approved, so that's what you're seeing there.
oh, okay,
Yep.
so it was approved last month.
Yep,
Okay.
because of the discussion, we left it off, and then with the approval, it's on there now.
That was my question.
That's a good catch.
Any further questions on stewardship grant?
No, just a comment. It's nice to see Lindsay Shantae's.
Or is that
Yeah.
Just down the street from the Leap Award winner. So it's kind of a cool neighborhood, maybe another highlight opportunity.
Yes, and she's a fellow watershed district staff person as well at another district. So
Oh, that's cool. So, okay, I won't ask any further questions. Thank you, Ashley.
yeah, thank you.
Let's move to our action item of the day, the 2025 preliminary budget and levy public hearing. It would be wonderful, Tina, if you could walk through the presentation and then we can open up the public hearing.
I just have the presentation that I had included in the packet. Doesn't look like we have visitors here, so I can jump to things that you have questions about, or I can go through it so that it's recorded.
I think just for public record, it'd be nice just to go through it.
Yep, just a few slides here. This is the overall budget and levy. As you saw at the August meeting, we had some preliminary numbers, and here I have what I'm asking for you to approve for the September meeting that will go to the counties for preliminary levy information. I've got down to 4.88% increase at this time. That's due to the notification that we received the grant for the third phase of the Roosevelt Homes project, the PCA. So that did bring down the proposed levy. I didn't really tinker too much with the carryover funds at this time, but that is still something that we keep adjusting, as I say, until December.
Tina, at the risk of interrupting, I just want to remind the group that we will have to close the general meeting and open the public meeting. Did you want to do that now or
Should
after
that
the
be done before
presentation?
the presentation or after? Can we do it after the presentation?
Yeah, we were
or
thinking
does
the
it-
presentation and then after she's gone through the material, it'd be good then to open up for comment.
Sure.
That's what we were thinking.
Yeah, that's fine. I just didn't want that part to get lost.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank
yeah.
you. Thank you.
Mhm.
This is some of the project breakdowns that are included also on the table that's included in the packet for some of our different larger funds and the project. None of these have been adjusted since the August meeting. Here's just an overview of the CIP projects and the funds, and showing some of the carryover that's being planned for, as well as in this case for target retrofits, we have some stormwater impact funds that can be used to help pay for some of the projects we're planning for 2025. For the Fish Creek project, we have watershed-based implementation funds available for that. And then this is the implementation stormwater resilience grant that we received notification of receiving for the Roosevelt Homes project. I'd like to just show kind of where the pots of money are and how it's spent, so you can get a sense of, what piece of the pie are we spending on project implementation and program implementation. So here you can see 84% of the budget is built into projects and programs. And then 16% of that is an administrative cost, that's salaries, benefits, employee expenses, as well as any administrative needs for, let's say, our office building, IT, things like that. And the rest of it then is through programs and projects. I also like to break it down by our plan goals, so you can see, how our whole budget, I take each line item and I split it up amongst the different projects or program, or in this case, our plan goals. Approximately 49% of our budget is allocated for managing risk of flooding, with 33% at surface waters. That's shifted. I mean, certainly 10 years ago, you would have seen much more in surface water quality projects and less in flooding. That's shifted, over the last several years. But still, I think in a reasonable allocation. And then our healthy ecosystems, managing our organization, use communications, are empowering communities, and then sustainable groundwater. I did a little breakdown of our 10-year historical levying budget. I added a few new lines this year just to give you an idea. So some of these are independent of each other. They don't necessarily add up, but I just wanted to show first, our admin budget is fairly stable, at least over the last several years. So that's just to show, that really where we're spending our money is in projects and implementation, the CIP budget here, which has increased dramatically, and this shows the increase due to flood risk projects, and the allocation of $5 million is quite significant for flood risk projects. This is just again showing kind of this little steady incline since 2022 in our levy requests, and then our general fund total budgets, again, which shares the same pattern as our CIPs. That's our largest budget. This is the information that I get from the county that shows what our impact on your residential taxes and our residents' taxes. It's showing, that our tax rate has increased, our local tax rate has increased almost to 3%. And there has been a negative change in market value. And then I put in the levy amount, and then it calculates out for me and for you, the taxing portion of what our tax is for these medium home values. And then the change from 2023, which is a reflection of both small, our increase in levy, but also change in market and the tax rates, and compared to everybody else, and that's taxing as well.
That last column, the change from
That should say
2023.
2024. Yeah.
That was one question or comment. Are those percents are overall,
Yeah.
not due to the district alone?
That's overall. Yes.
I was wondering if you had teased out due to district and that. Is there a way to tease it out from those numbers? Because I know when I first read it through, I had to reread it to realize what Mark just said. Because 11% is fairly high for an increase just for us, but I know it's not just that.
Right. So that would be total, right? So that's based on all those factors that I mentioned. What we're asking the counties to levy for us is right now is a 4.88%. So that would be kind of how you would estimate what that would be based on what our impact that's all I had in the. Oops. Oops, that's that. Keyboard. Any questions or anything you want me to?
Ooh, let's do the public hearing
Oh,
and
yeah.
we'll transition
That
to
sounds
the.
good, perfect.
So I'm gonna try my best here, Lauren. So I'm going to close our board meeting and open up for public hearing for comments. What we need is name, address, if there are public comments. I don't see anyone online.
Yeah, there's nobody in the
No.
room here
Oh, yeah, there's
as a
nobody in the room.
visitor for comment. Is there anybody online that would like to comment? So then I think you can close
Yep.
the public hearing.
So I'm gonna close the public hearing at 7:05. Thank goodness the meetings will capture that, and reopen our board meeting for board discussion. Okay, so if you have questions, now is the time. So let's ask them of Tina, or points to be made.
I have questions.
Yeah, after you first. Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
So, comment, it was wonderful, we got the grant.
Yeah.
That was wonderful. But I have a question. There was a change in how you calculated contingency.
Yeah.
And can you share your thinking on why you went to standardized 10%?
Yeah, that was actually a comment that Val had made at the previous meeting, at the August meeting, asking for some sort of standardization of, because there was, you know, in a budget that was 400,000, we had 25,000 contingency, and in a budget that was 50,000, we also had 25,000 contingency. So it was a good comment that we kind of standardized. So I took a 10% for each of those groupings for the contingency.
So can you talk a little bit more about why or how the watershed district has dipped into those contingency funds in the past?
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of cases, they haven't been used. They're, you know, backup. I would say in some cases, for instance, the feasibility studies, maybe a new idea or problem or situation pops up where we would like to not wait until the following year to complete a study or take, you know, deeper dive into things. Same with research. That's something we have used in research before too, where something comes up mid-year that, again, we'd like to kind of get a jump on instead of waiting until the next year to start. I would say we've used it more in the feasibility studies and the research, maybe some of the program areas, water quality for sure, because that's really dependent on kind of year we're having. You know, if we have an extra wet year, then we'll require more for monitoring than drier years.
Could you speak to, if we don't use them, how it impacts future levies?
Yep, so that any, you know, funds that aren't used out of our general fund then are in our carryover for the next year, which I plan for. Look at the end of the year what we have left from this year that would carry over to our next year.
Is that,
It decreases our levy.
is that principal source of carryover, or are there other sources?
So the carryover from the general fund, just unused funds for that whole top portion of that budget is carried over. You know, it's just accumulates in our accounts, but then we don't have to levy, you know, as much if we have extra carryover. Let's say we only spend 75% of our budget in a year in our general fund, then we can, you know, use that other 25% the next year. And then in our CIP projects, that's more of a timing of projects, you know, and building up funds so that we have money for next year.
So if I could just continue on the discussion of contingency, I have a little bit of a difficulty accepting the 10% standardized.
Okay.
It seems like contingency is typically a risk thing, and I mean, for the things that you said, you may have used it for research, that number goes down over $8,000, but for education, events, communication, it goes up. I mean, if we really wanted to just manage to a budget, why not dedicate that it's over $60,000 we're adding for this contingency, why don't you just add it somewhere and just call it something and just retain what you had before in terms of, you had contingency numbers previously, but
Yeah.
now by standardizing it,
Yeah.
you've kind of washed it out, and it becomes,
Yeah,
it's more difficult, I think, to manage to a budget unless you just say, this is what we have. I mean, I can't see some of these projects just assuming a 10% increase or a sizable increase. to
right.
what
I mean,
you
I
have.
think that's just an it's unpredictable, right? So sometimes you don't use it at all and sometimes you need some.
I agree, but
There's more of
I-
like the outside program support. I
Yeah.
think in previous ones, the
Yeah.
contingency in that line item was almost equivalent to
Yeah.
the overall budget. And so in prior years, a contingency budget is used more generally. And so it's, as we were looking for, okay, what is our standard risk assumption for some of these particular ones based off of budget? I think the best guess right now is that 10% is kind of where you're shooting for. So as I look through the budgets from previous years, there's times where we overshoot by like 150% on things. So like even now, the training and education is over by 100, like by
but
20 something.
it's a small number though.
I
So
totally get it.
you want to quibble on that one, I'm sorry, but it raises, I mean, it adds you did a great job with the advent of, or the grant, bringing the number down from an increase of 10% down to under 5, but it's still rounding up, it's still 5.
Yep.
So given, I'm just very sensitive to the fact that taxes
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's on everybody's mind.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it's
and
just-
so the thing about the preliminary levy is that we don't wanna set that at 0 right now.
No, I
Right?
know,
Yeah,
I
so
understand, and
right,
I'm
so we
okay with
still
having
have-
a levy, I'm
Yeah.
just quibbling on this 10% because I don't think it's the right approach to managing a budget.
Sure,
I think it's a little,
Mhm.
I think you did well with what you had
Mhm.
before,
Mhm.
and I understand, maybe you need to readjust some of those numbers, but
Yeah,
I would say that
to not standardize.
if I
be
had a
more-
chance to
Yeah.
say, come Waterfest and we needed another $5,000,
Yeah.
there we go. It's just a sensitivity at this
I
point. in
think
time.
too, with the general fund items, so all these they are allocated by you, like certain budgets are allocated by you, but overall it's not. There's more flow between, right? So it's an overall general fund budget. I think I understand what you're saying though, so
I just wanted to
there
share that.
definitely can be more analysis or, looking more specifically at each of them, because I think you're right. I actually don't think outside program support probably needs, well, now it's only at 3,700, so that's probably fine, but just to manage maybe changes over the year, but I see what you're saying about looking more specifically at each of them versus.
It was just a big change that just kind of hit the radar, so just
Did
context.
it increase the overall contingency amount?
Yes,
Yeah, by how much did you say? I guess
over
I
60,000.
didn't review that specifically, but
In truth, the historical representation of whatever the contingency should be is what you baseline off. I think the 10%
Yeah.
shot is okay. But really the outcome I'm trying to shoot for is I don't want a levy increase. That's really what
Yeah.
I want over next year. And so through the paring back from now until December, if we target contingency budgets, I'm very comfortable with that. But I think having some rationale behind it and not having like a 50% contingency
right.
versus other times where it was like 20%, that was very challenging to follow. And so I think it's a step in the right direction. It's just not exactly
Yeah.
informed in the way that we at some point hope to have it informed. That's how I picture it. So I think at the end, my end goal and my request is how do we find a way to keep the levy either flat or as low as we possibly can, knowing that we still have a build
Yep.
year, we have to do the belt line repair, and we have a bunch of other contingency projects coming through for other reduction reasons.
I think those are good comments. Um, yeah, I'm hearing two things, you know. Well, I'm hearing about keeping the levy flat, which I think is very doable. And then if there is a need to cut, you know, where we're cutting, it could potentially be in certain contingency funds, maybe not all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to see us mature the contingency funds. It
Yeah.
should be based off of history. But I requested it because it just didn't make sense the way I saw it beforehand.
Yep.
But I didn't do the math to calculate it all up.
In past conversations, you've mentioned that the preliminary levy is typically, estimate is not the best word, but it is something that is submitted to the counties, and in most years, it typically will come down significantly, or at least come down at final levy.
Yeah.
Can you say more about that, and maybe even the process?
Yeah, so that's where we're continually refining our project budget. So we're working on different design, or we're doing our project planning for, for the next year. Some of those numbers will shift a little bit if we're better refine our projects. And then it's in the carryover. So as we work through the rest of the year, each month I get a better sense of where we're at for what we're gonna have in our general and project fund carryovers. And then that helps refine the levy amounts.
It seems like, and maybe I'm not using the best terms, but it seems like the flexibility and the estimated levy is in part built from the contingency, which we just spent some time talking about. Also the carryover. And the third component, if I understand correctly, is the general fund. There are other funds that, gee, if it seems like we're a little too heavy in, say, the targeted retrofit, we can use other monies to keep those projects moving forward because they're priority projects. So it's those three components provide flexibility. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so each of the CIP funds are their own separate funds, and those monies are spent for those purposes. You can, through resolution, transfer money between them, but it's a little more difficult. The general fund, so all those first, line items up through the line 45 on the budget table, that's one pot of money, general fund money that that we separate out into all those different categories. But there is more opportunities. I mean, if, like, for instance, if something's over 100%, which you've seen on the budget table before, it's usually a small amount, but if that's covered by the whole general fund. So you'll see on the budget status report, the general fund has a total budget and what's spent percentage. But, I would say it's typically better practice to come in a little higher in your preliminary budget so that you're decreasing it by December, or if something were to come up over the next several months, that you'd have that opportunity to keep it, at that level to continue with those projects for the next year. It's better than trying to hit 0 in September and maybe even though you're allowed to do that,
Yeah, I don't think that the contingency should be 0. I do think that things like, repair, unknown maintenance, that's potential risk. I mean, you outlined project was such. So we do need it. It's just, to just.
No, I was talking about the 0 levy increase.
Yeah.
The levy increase.
And I want to build on a point there. The other piece that I'm thinking through, and maybe you can help me remember. Did we use carryover funds for our first shot for the BMP, the street sweeping? I'm trying to recall how we ended up funding that. Was that with some of the I can't recall. I guess it's not pertinent, but if we had a BMP that we
Yeah.
see promising, there are some things that we can do,
Right.
flexibilities to have, is kind of the point I'm making. But I would love to find ways to reduce at least flats is at the maximum. And the other point that I was gonna highlight is, I think Ben proposed this last year, and I'm hoping to see it again this year in terms of, you know, what do we get if we shoot for a levy of this? What do we, you know, what do we have to drop when you get a levy of that kind of stuff? I think that comes a little later in our process, if I recall correctly. But yeah, something to that effect. What
Yeah,
did we do? We did like a 5, a 3, and a 1 or something like that.
well, I think, yeah, I can't remember, I can look back at how we looked at.
I just like the gradation to see, okay, well, at 1% you gain this, at 3% you gain this plus this. It was
Yeah.
kind of a nice conversation to see what the trade-offs were.
Sounds good.
If I could just add to something that Mark was hitting on, if you look at something like the project feasibility studies, and at least at this point, they're really a concept based on what we've learned to this point. And as you know, before we embark on the journey of any of these studies, we do a scope summary in more detail, again, to refine that. And so we don't really know at this point, you know, just how much that's going to cost to get to the level of detail we need. So, you know, for that particular chunk of things, we usually ask Tina to put in a little extra just in case, but we've been pretty good about, you know, guessing on the right on the line or maybe on the high side, so we've been pretty safe on most of these, but that's not originally for that. That's a bigger chunk there, things that we do each year.
Want to make sure it's heard, so, you know, we don't have to standardize. It's definitely not a, we can exercise those funds. Let's try to keep it as low as possible, is I think some of the takeaways that we had. Any other takeaway that I was missing on the budget conversation? Okay. Thank you. There's no motion. Oh, no,
Yes,
there is a motion.
yeah.
It's resolution 2403. You want to read it out, or should we say, do I have a motion to approve resolution 2403? So moved. Okay,
Seconded.
all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Any abstains?
So, I haven't voted yet, but sorry, I need to ask.
Oh, okay.
You're accepting this as is?
The-
So I will, sorry,
From a preliminary budget standpoint.
sorry, can I add it to my vote to aye?
Okay, yes.
Repeat.
Let's repeat. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay, and all abstain say abstain. Okay, the motion or resolution 2403 passed. Let's transition to the attorney reports. Lauren.
Hi, everyone. Not too much to report this month, which, as you know, is a good thing. The notice of the public hearing ran as required in the Pioneer Press for 2 consecutive weeks. I know Tina included that in the memo with the budget. And otherwise, just doing some document reviews, some contract review for several of the projects that are going on. Not much else from me this evening, unless you have any questions.
Any questions for Lauren? Short and sweet. Thank you, Lauren.
Yep.
Okay, moving forward. Oh,
General question.
Yeah,
Is the Pioneer Press the only way we're presenting this? I mean, this is the second year where there's been no public comment, which is kind of surprised me. I don't know if that's very common or.
Very common.
Um,
Yeah, it's the only consistent.
I know it's like the
newspaper
only newspaper, but do we do anything through our webpage to
It's all on
advertise
our
it,
website.
or-
Yep, it's all on our website.
Yeah,
And I mail it, I
Okay.
not mail it, I email it to all of our city contacts.
okay.
So they all receive it as well. But yes, it's all on our website.
It was like the number one thing we started
Yeah.
asking because the world's moving more electronic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it,
Totally
we're
get you.
still required under
Yeah,
statute.
no, I understand that,
Yeah.
but we have to do that.
Yeah.
Just a
But no, it's
question.
not the only way.
Have we ever considered, I mean, that's a very good source for this content, but putting it in like the Ripple or other, kind of, because that's kind of people that stakeholders wise are
Yeah.
used to looking at and keeping informed about the district as well as just looking at the
Yeah.
website.
I mean, that's a good idea. I'm not sure, I'm trying to remember, I don't think she did have it in the one that just went out, but maybe we could do it for the next one where she could say that you approved the preliminary levy, and here's the information, and then we can cite the December meetings. Yeah, good idea.
That's a good idea. Good question, Ben. Thank you. We're moving on to board discussion topics, so that was very timely. I did want to recall, you should see it in your inbox, that there is a nomination submission request for Ramsey-Washington Metro Watershed District Watershed Excellence Awards. I think the due date is September 18th. So for folks who have people in mind, this is a great way to recognize those individuals. I can't recall if you wanted nominations sent to you, Tina, if we had, as a board, had them or
There was an online form.
there's an online form, so I
Yes.
just wanted to make sure we
Yeah.
can individually go and do
Yeah.
that. So if you have people, please take the time, nominate. That's a good thing to do. I had one other topic that I just want to tell you status on. So we talked recently about educational things, and there's a lot of unique things that this watershed does that I think we could build some sort of, hey, if you want to learn more about these things, here's some opportunities as we're building. It's not finalized to share. It's just, that's on me. I've not kind of put the proposal to Tina, but I do think it'll be fun as we look through it. Unfortunately, some of the inspections are coming to a close, if I recall. But yeah, I think that'll be great. Any other?
I was just gonna mention too on that regard, that we are looking at doing a site visit before the October meeting, probably to Pioneer Park to see the right page. Is that still the thought, Pioneer Park for the?
Yeah, well, we
youth?
thought Pioneer Park or potentially Woodland Hills. I don't know if we
Okay.
want to
Oh, that's right. We just.
throw it out to a vote.
That's right. We'll take a look at which one is a better opportunity at that time.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
wonderful. And I know I, for one, really want to go see the Boys and Girls Club at some point, and the
Okay.
work that's done there, but that's a personal thing I'd love to
Yeah.
see more of that.
Yeah, sounds good.
So I had some also,
Mhm.
building on the learning opportunities that Bell raised last month. I find myself spending a significant amount of time on reading through the permit application materials. And I think it's because I don't know how to, I would like to become more proficient at it.
Mm,
Just a question, I wonder if maybe it would help if I saw how the experts did it. Maybe would it be helpful for us to sit in on one of the permit application reviews? So we can, I can hear what you're looking at. Maybe I'm, what key information you guys focus on, at least on paper. So just a thought there. And then the second one has to do in a totally different topic, but also,
Let me say, I heard you on that application tours. I'll add it to that list of possible learning opportunities. I know she sent, because I was poking a bunch at Nicole when I first joined, she sent me kind of the materials, but I know she walked me through some of it at some point, and that was really helpful. So I get you.
yeah. The second one is, has to do with the request for future technical presentations. I really do appreciate receiving the slides ahead of time, but sometimes I personally would benefit from being cued in a little bit more about what I should be expecting from the presentation in terms of maybe an executive summary ahead of time to tell me if this happens to be a continuing study. Sometimes your continuing studies happen over a long period of time. So what is kind of that baseline understanding that we have already to date, and then what this particular presentation is going to layer on top of that.
Sure.
How is it going to accelerate our understanding? And then, the second one is, could you tell me what the takeaway is at the very beginning? And then, walk through the whole presentation and tell me what it is again.
Sure.
That is very useful for me,
Yeah.
especially as an expectation, of, is this information only? To just
Yep.
clue me in, or is there an expectation to take this information and what the expert's recommendation is in order to make the next decision?
Sure.
So like the Coleman Lake.
Yeah.
It was a lot.
Yeah.
And if we could, then maybe perhaps put a time limit on presentations to allow the time for just digesting it and then also for the Q&A.
Thanks for those suggestions.
Those are good. Any other discussion topics? I did want to ask, and I was talking with folks, does this board work with, or does the administration work with the group called the Wild Ones? I think they do some planting.
I can't say you guys worked with those ones. I mean, I'm familiar with them, but I don't.
No, I don't have any.
Just curious what our history was.
Wild ones, no.
Okay, thank you.
Does the education staff to Sage?
Maybe
Which,
she
I mean,
might.
I know
Maybe
she
it's
has some
Sage.
green thumbs.
Yeah.
I wanna say that she's had some interaction.
Yeah, I know the name is familiar, but I don't.
Maybe I'll try to pick her mind before she retires. Thank you,
Yeah.
Mark. I just,
Yeah.
somebody brought it to my attention,
great.
a willingness and desire to participate in some
Yeah.
things. And so I was like, oh, I'll bring it up and ask.
Yeah, feel free to. send a message.
I'll do that. Awesome. Thank you all for the board discussions. There are no new reports or presentations this month, so I'm going to pass it to the administrative report.
Yeah, I've got some informational items here. I will note in the upcoming meetings that we do have a date for the Watershed Excellence Awards, November 21st. Mark your calendars for that. And then the Minnesota Watershed's annual conference is coming up shortly after that. And now that it's September, those things are gonna come quick, so. You should see more information on the Minnesota Watershed's annual conference coming in the next couple of weeks. I met today, I'm on the Education and Events Committee, so we talked about the presentations that are gonna be done at that conference, as well as some of the other kind of program changes. We're moving venues this year, so there's some different things going on, but the Minnesota Watershed updates, there's keep update on the newsletters. Is everybody receiving those emails from Minnesota Watershed, specifically the newer members? I know she was getting some bounce back from yours, but
I'm getting it twice. Okay. Doubly covered.
double covered. Okay, well, maybe I can tell her she can take away one of those. But yeah, there'll be more to come on that as well. And then I'll be looking for specific obligation, whether or not you are planning to attend or not, so we can get your registration finalized. The other thing that's coming up, I guess, closer is the Minnesota Water Resources Conference, which is in October. I don't have that on the calendar, but that is something that if board members are interested in attending, we have provided registrations for board members for that conference as well. And I can send out a link to you so you can see the kind of conference brochure and overview. That is the Tuesday, Wednesday of MEA, which is the 15th and 16th of October. So I'll send you some information on that as well, and you can let me know if you're interested.
Okay. Any questions for Tina?
One quick question. I'm looking for it now. In your summary, I remember seeing you attended the SALT symposium.
Yeah. Yep.
I had considered attending this year. I wasn't able to. But I'm just curious, do you have any highlights?
Yes, and you know, I kind of popped in and out. We did it, it was all
Sure.
online, so I kind of popped in and out, but some of the, definitely there was some discussion on the salt design, you know, using design for low salt use. Discussion on alternatives to salt, so I can summarize that and include some information.
Yeah,
I can make it.
it'd be great.
Yeah.
And actually that, the first thing that you mentioned, the design.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
something that, we talked about
Yes,
before.
yep.
Seems like it's,
Oh, yeah,
we're going that direction.
did I send that link to that meeting, to the Minnesota Watersheds meeting where that was presented, so that you could see that presentation? I can't remember if I think I said I would. I did. I can resend that too.
No, that was from January, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said you saw it at work, but I can share it.
Yeah.
Specifically, this is on chloride management in our waterways, is that? am I
Well,
concluding that correctly?
it is something that is, and Tina could probably say more, or Brad could say more about it than I, but I had seen a presentation earlier this year about design and how project design, there are a number of things we're learning can maybe be brought into the consideration, into design that could potentially reduce the use of salt.
Yeah, I definitely would love to see that. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
I have one question on your Minnesota watersheds update piece. Do you mind if you, for information, could send the submitted project program nomination for Lake Owasso, so we're just educated on
Yeah.
the award?
Yep.
I understand the project, just would love to see what was written, so if we
Sure.
do attend, we can speak highly to it.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions for Tina as we go? Good, Stephanie. I see it.
I have a question. I see you attended the Wheeling Creek daylighting meeting.
Yeah.
Just a curiosity, I saw that they are also having a 60% design, another request for public input. Just wondering what if we should expect to see any further development, or what your feelings are on that project.
Yeah, so the board now, their schedule was to submit 90% for permit review in I thought September, but I don't know that that's gonna happen because we're September now. But they are still hoping to construct starting in the spring, so I would expect that you'll see something in the next several months through our permitting program. Yeah, we've been very active with their meeting with them, technical issues related to both, providing a second outlet from Phelan and then also our connection to our Beltline system. We've requested a number of structural planning documents regarding the Beltline, geotechnical, and I know Brandon has solicited feedback from bar staff that are in that realm of work as far as what's required of them to submit. So it's a big project, it's ongoing, and we're kind of getting piece by piece. We did as a staff, and Brandon Barnes from BAR specifically back in June provided comments on their design set at the time, which was a pre-60% design. And they just provided some response to those comments, so reviewing those as well.
I seem to recall in conversations around that project that we were hoping to add it to the program summary tabs. Is that still a plan potentially? We had talked about how do we provide some visibility or insights as it
Yeah.
matures. I just don't recall. Is that
Yeah.
okay to do?
In the PSR.
Mainly because that discussion was like, we were looking for more
Really,
information.
yeah, no reason not to. It's a little unique, and
Yeah.
because it's not our project that we're.
I always find success is driven when you control the inputs and
Yeah.
outputs to your program.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that would be really helpful. Would that also?
Yeah, I just remember I think I was caught off guard by the presentation and the ask.
Yes. Cool, yeah, that would be great. Awesome. Other questions for Tina?
Maybe we could actually. Yeah, we'll figure out where.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have, like, I like keeping tabs on some of these things. It's a personal thing. It sounds like others are interested. And so if we just see like, hey, this is where we're doing, and it's a pretty important thing with their proposals to impact the Beltline and long term.
Yeah.
Cool. So I'd like to go and spend some time with the project the project and program status reports. Like we have before, if you have a question, I'm gonna just kind of go down and say, hey, you know, for example, I have one on A. So if anybody has questions on A, let me know. But as I look at the HRA and their process in doing it, I guess I'm not familiar with how they go through and do reviews. Could you help us understand it feels like the process is slower than expected. What's driving that, out of curiosity? Is it just their cadence?
Own policy.
Okay.
It's their own need for having some sort of policy for how they work with organizations like us.
Understood. Okay.
They're supportive of the project. I don't anticipate their being, but they have a board like, you know, you do. So as we've been working with staff and they brought the item of our project to the board, they said, oh, this is great, but we don't have a process really for what if somebody else comes to us, or, you know, whatever.
Gotcha.
So that's where we're kind of at right now. And so then they did an inventory of, well, they sent us and Capital Region an inventory of the properties that they own throughout the 2 watersheds, and we, you know, provided some feedback on kind of what maybe future thoughts we have about the properties that they own. So they're taking all that into consideration.
Yeah, it says fall 2024, and I know we
Yeah.
talked about it for a bit, and I just was curious.
Yeah, and then we're hopeful that as they finalize their process, then that they would be willing to, you know, have a more formal dedication of using that land for our project so that we could reapply for the implementation grant.
My next question is briefly on the property owner declining city staff access to constructing the final pipe segments. I assume private owner?
Yeah, and all private property.
Okay,
Yeah.
just was curious. Do we have the support of the city in engaging that particular property owner?
Well, I think that's part of the problem is that they don't want the city on their property. Or the watershed, I don't think.
Understood.
Unless, Paige, do you have anything else to add to that? No.
Yeah, I don't want to get into any of the
Yeah.
private details, but I just been trying to understand.
Yeah.
So are we evaluating different designs if this doesn't go through with the final pipe segments for the Phelan Village flood risk stuff?
I mean, I think, you know, we've been able to proceed with some of it and provide most of the benefits. I think it is just what it is at this point. Yeah, but there's not anything additional that we would do except maybe wait for a change in ownership at some.
Okay. My next question's on H. Any questions between this and H?
Yes.
Perfect. After you, Mark.
G, the item watershed management plan. And I'm just curious, it sounds like there have been discussions between BAR and staff. And I'm curious when we might begin having some conversation on the plan.
Yeah, so we haven't had that kickoff meeting yet with staff, but that would anticipate that coming in the next month. And then you've seen what the plan is for 2025 essentially, so we'll be presenting, I would say, by the December meeting. And then 2025 will be
Real
the
busy.
big question.
Thanks, good question. Going to the new technologies, I'm really quite interested in this technology. Is there going to be a larger presentation to follow once an assessment's been done using the cyan for detecting toxic algae blooms? it's not clear to me, and as you look through the study and you compare the reports to see if it works, like, it'd be nice to see, hey, this is something worth investing in and carrying forward. I get that's probably what you're trying to get to at some point. I just don't know what your timing looks like.
Well, my take on this is, I think there's still some additional tracking to be done of, how this is working. And then, we would be able to say, yes, we should look into this deeper and how we can apply it. I think this is just kind of a, more of a heads up. The technology is out there. It looks like it has some promise, but
especially with the accuracy and improvements in cameras and looking at these things, it seems highly possible. And how lovely would it be if we could predict how this is?
Oh, absolutely.
Same item, probably kind of a technical question. Just looking at the list of waters within the district, it appears that a number of waters, our lakes are included. There are some data. A number of them, there are no data points, and it's roughly in my back of the napkin, seems like they're largely smaller, that language, smaller, shallower lakes, basins. And do we have an understanding, do we know if this sand has like a 4x4 meter pixel, or any idea, kind of that resolution of the imagery? Getting kind of wonky, but just curious if anybody knew. We likely would hear about it. I agree with Val.
Yeah.
That it'd be great to have a presentation on this. It seems to have merit sometime in the future.
This really gets the predictability into it.
Yeah, you're right, though, the ones I don't have are either small lakes or wetlands. Many of them are wetlands.
So these lakes are, the ones that have data on them, have you actually checked that it correlates with reports of the presence of the green algae?
I don't think
know
so.
unless,
Or is it just
I
that
mean, we
think-
haven't, this
yeah.
was just from as far as the data that's available. I haven't had our staff compare it, I guess. I mean, we have a few on this list that we know we get reports on, some we don't ever hear about. But
I think
we
Round
might.
Lake was one of those where
Yeah.
we would get a report, we'd go out and sample and test it, things like that, but.
yeah, and Carver.
There's quite a list here, and I'm confident that many of these we have never sampled before.
Yeah.
We could have reported, but by the time we got out there,
Mm.
it was dispersed and it's pretty good.
So we really haven't taken it to the next step.
I mean, it sounds like there's some excitement around it, so I'd love to see some sort of plan around, but as you go through. My next question is, well, actually, it's more of a comment, and it's all the way down to the natural resources update. Anything between this and you? You have something on L?
Yeah, I don't know, Dave or Paige, maybe. There was, I'm just curious, scheduling wise, in the packet, it talked about, project is being completed. Peterson has submitted, I believe, their final invoice. There's some planting that was going to happen like maybe this week or next week. Is that still kind of the latest and greatest status?
Sorry, Mark, are you talking about Roosevelt or Target or Pioneer Park?
I was thinking the targeted retrofit for Woodbury Target.
Oh, yes. Yeah, Dave probably has a better update. He was out there today, but yeah, they're still on track, finishing things up, hopefully in the next couple weeks here.
That's basically correct. We'll be done around I think pavement is scheduled for the 17th-ish of the month, and then striping right after that. So within 2.5 weeks or so.
That payment, that was a progress payment, it was not a final payment, just
Okay,
for Peterson.
good clarification, thank you.
Well, and actually for Krilla too, it was not the final payment. And I mentioned to Val earlier too, that I talked to Bar about having a memo, kind of a summarization of the project and how we all fell out at the end between the two contractors, as well as, you know, some lessons learned.
Awesome. Any other questions?
Just a comment, and Dave, you can chime in here as well, as I understand we're starting to get closer to packaging up our our annual CIP maintenance project, and there's a lot of communities that are looking for help with their pond cleanup, so many more than we ever have before, so we expect a big project this year, and lots of activity in the pond cleanout area. Is that fairly
Yeah,
accurate? I just
that's-
heard that today, so.
Yeah, that's correct. We've had more people jump on this year than ever before. I'd say there was probably about 25 ponds that they wanted us to look at and kind of just diagnose, and we're probably going to survey about 20 of them. All the cities approved, we're all on board, so it should be an interesting, fun year.
Yeah. Just as a reminder, those are projects that we'll administer, but will be reimbursed for the construction costs.
Our likely biggest one is going to be McKnight Basin to get ahead of a Ramsey County Parks kind of project they have going on, and they're redoing their parking lots. So if we can get ahead for the pond cleaning, it just makes sense. So we don't have to drive on a brand new parking lot for a few years.
I just wanted to at least verbalize our interns are very valuable. So Amelia's returning to school, so that's great. Thank you for everything she's done. And then I love the state fair. I'm sorry I missed it. Is there a way that we can highlight next year when you guys are going to come, or like the blue thumbs appear?
Yeah, if for an opportunity to
Yeah,
volunteer.
well, either a volunteer or attend. You know,
Yeah.
my kids love the Waterfest stuff, so they would love to see.
Yeah.
It's selfish. Yeah, if we could just hear about it, that'd be wonderful. And then I love the illustration and signage that is proposed. I don't know how it fits, and so I get what you're trying to do with the illustrations. I'd love to hear more about it later.
Under
For
the
the communications.
Yep, I can have Lauren provide more information.
Yeah, it seems like it would be really good, illustrative for specifically kids and other people curious.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So I don't have any other questions on program and project summaries. Do anyone else? So let's go to manager comments, the next month's meeting section. Stephanie, I liked a lot of your suggestions that you said earlier. It's spent some time processing through it. And there's a lot of value in adding some of those things. I know that these presentations can go long, so I'll definitely, Gina, we can chat offline. I think there's some good things that we can do there.
Yep.
Anything else for next month's meeting? Any comments to bring up? Wonderful. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Perfect. We are adjourned. Thank you much.
Before